Is it strange that I felt that President Biden's farewell address felt like it was written by two different people?
Welcome to 1850 Main Street, a place where friends get together and talk about their country and hope for a brighter future. Today, Rob Walgate and Alan C. Duncan from the Public Square are joined by Dave Zanotti, the CEO of the American Policy Roundtable.
I found myself totally agreeing with some of the stuff he said and then totally disagreeing with other things that he said.
That's how I felt listening to it and watching it and reading it. Like you were being invited into Thanksgiving dinner and then it turned into Festivus. They were airing grievances all at the same time. I'm like, what are we doing here? There were some awkward moments in it. But maybe they took turns. Someone wrote something nice and someone was like, wait a minute. We got to let them know how we really feel. I'm
going to search. As we're doing this, I want to search and see if we know who exactly wrote this. It felt like
I've been looking for 24 hours straight, Alan. I can't find it.
Well, I'm going to see what Grok has to say on X.
Two progressive speechwriters walked into a bar, and no one could give them the definition of oligarchy. Is it oligarchy or is it oligarchy? What a Seinfeld episode this would be.
It would be a Seinfeld episode. I just did find it interesting getting lectured on oligarchs and wealthy people and who is actually in charge of the United States. And then thinking back to the ceremony at the White House last week where Joe Biden gives the Presidential Medal of Freedom to George Soros. And I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't he fit the definition of what you were trying to describe and warn us of?
The poster child of oligarchy for the last 2 centuries.
Everybody hates an oligarch unless they're your oligarch. Then you love them.
Or you're in their will.
Yeah, either one.
Well, and I know there was confirmation hearings taking place on the Hill, and Bernie Sanders was questioning regarding it. And he was questioning, who was it? Mr. Beskin, I think was who he was questioning. And he was asking him about oligarch. And that's what, there was confusion there. He's looking around, he's like, well, the things he's warning us of, he kind of was cool with when he was the one that was in charge, when President Biden was the one that was in charge.
I feel like we're in the middle of a junior high school drama. Joe Biden was hanging out with this set of kids and they were dominating the playground. And then somehow they decided they didn't want Joe Biden in their club anymore. So now he's standing up on the hillside explaining to everybody why this group of people that he spent the last 5 years with is no good.
Well, yeah, the one of the things that jumped to me was that he said we have to ban congressional stock trades. Congress people trading for stocks when they're in office. I thought, wow. Okay, I feel like you're not making a lot of friends out the door with that one, but I thought that was a pretty cool idea.
But I also think it's kind of easy for the guy who's been in public service for 50 years and is leaving office as one of the wealthiest to now come up with an idea to limit others' ability to do it. I'm all for it as well. I just think like where's he been for 50 years? He also talked about term limits for Supreme Court justices. And I'm like, wait a minute here. Like now we're going to tell, like you've ridden on this horse. You've sat there and collected all this. And now all of a sudden it's a bad thing. Look how much money it's made you and your family. We won't even bring up his son's name to talk about that and the influence and the amount of money that was made. But now he's going to limit the Supreme Court, but he doesn't talk about limiting his friends in the Senate or the House, I don't believe.
It gets a little weird when the 50-year-old snowman is talking to you about it's time to put term limits on all the other snowmen.
Dave, did you think he would give that farewell address, or did you think he'd ride off into the sunset? There's been so much talked about it. Will he, won't he? Now his wife is giving the interview that's kind of ruffled some feathers regarding her relationship with Pelosi and others through the year. So some people thought he would just go away and disappear. He did start it, I think, an hour sooner than we anticipated.
It's hard to really understand or evaluate. You could go back to George W. Bush and do some psychoanalysis on relationships and childhood and life consequences and trauma. You go back and analyze the childhood and the trauma patterns in the life of Barack Obama. Joe Biden seems to be leaving after 50 years, leaving as president of the United States, and still seems to be trying to convince all the rest of us that he really does have the caliber and the quality and the intellect to be the president of the United States. It's like a classic miss.
Well, we were looking at who potentially helped to write this speech. The one name that I have seen pop up is historian John Meacham, who we've talked about.
I wondered that. That's John Meacham from Vanderbilt.
Yeah, who we've talked about him on the public square in times past. Now he's kind of trying to distance himself from that. Apparently, maybe
Can
kind
you
of
blame him?
denying it.
Dunk, if you had written that speech, how would you have felt about the delivery? Well, there was this guy hanging on the arm of the statue, like painting the glass. Cleaning the glass.
It could have been
so that the
worse.
light would reach.
It could have been worse.
And I'm like going, what are you talking about?
It could have been worse. But I would have felt like an offensive coordinator who installed a really good game plan, and then my quarterback couldn't execute. That's how I would have felt.
But you say it could have been worse, and I guess I do agree, but
for him,
yeah. But that's the problem. The bar has been lowered.
That's true.
So much that, it's just, how low is that bar? It's like, well, nothing broke.
That's
he made
true.
it through
You're
the
right.
speech.
No,
So
you're right.
It's good enough.
I got to throw a caution flag here. I got to throw a yellow flag. In this regard, the president's not here to defend himself. But all that being said, what you just said, Rob, I think is the biggest problem that we faced as a country. Joe Biden has no sense, no cognizant sense, no sense of responsibility about how doing what he's done has diminished the presidency in the eyes of all of us and in the eyes of the world. Now, to a certain degree, that's a good thing because we've got such a hyperinflated image of the presidency. It's much better to look at a person in all of their humanity and say, wow, that's the president. But it's also scary because this is not just humanity we're seeing humanity incapacitated at the highest level of power. And that's frightening.
Yes, because the scary part is if he did not had or has not had the cognitive ability to make those decisions, I think the American people have a right to know who was or who is making those decisions.
Yeah. Well, we can't even
Wouldn't
find
it
who
have
wrote
been interesting?
the speech. So it's like, will we ever know?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been interesting if he had gone off script, Alan, or even had part of a script to say, for the last 5 years, there's been something I've wanted to talk with you about.
Oh, that would.
And I didn't feel that for the purposes of national security and other reasons that it would be exactly appropriate. Let's talk about my mental capacity. And let me explain to you why I kept this job and why he could have gone totally vulnerable. It would have been riveting and he would have won. That would have been a winning moment in regards to hearts and minds, because it's just like when Reagan released his letter explaining that he had Alzheimer's. The outpouring of compassion from everyone, friend and foe alike, because he was leveling with people. But it just sort of felt like Joe Biden on the way out was still doing the junior high school thing and basically deflecting any sense of responsibility or liability or disclosure.
Yeah, I mean, he's still got a little time. I mean, it would be interesting to see if he would do something like release a letter.
Yeah, but if he does one more farewell, it'll have more closing endings than they had at the Lord of the Rings series. And we're now into the fourth ending.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what's really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to the Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast, or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America's talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
I do think when it comes to writing the speech and the people that wrote it, I think it was very, very evident that they wanted the pat on the back for the negotiation between Hamas and Israel, that they wanted to take full credit for that, knowing darn well that January 20th, there is going to be a regime change. And I don't think the new regime will have the patience that the current administration has had in regards to all this. So they can pat themselves on the back for getting the deal done, but they also need to acknowledge where help came from.
It took a long time, and yeah.
Yeah, and of course, how adept that would have been and brilliant on the writer's point of view by basically saying, look, I want to thank my former opponent and now the next president of the United States, Donald Trump, because he has strongly stated his intentions in directing the country in regards to this conflict. And that's helped. We've been at this for 15 months, and I think we're going to get it closed now. And we appreciate the fact that he's in agreement with us that this needs to get done.
Yeah.
Could have taken it right there.
That would have been nice. I think the closest thing you were probably going to get was what he did say. When he said, let's at least do a smooth transition and work together. I was surprised to hear that, but which is the sheer irony of the fact that they've been calling Donald Trump an existential threat to democracy for years now. Now it's okay to do a smooth transition. Now Trump and Obama are sitting next to each other at President Carter's memorial, chatting and talking, which again, I'm glad to see, but people need to understand that they've been calling Trump this threat, and you've seen multiple attempts on his life. That would have been nice to have apologized for that.
And President Obama has taken some flack from the left for appearing chummy per se with incoming President Trump at that service. I mean, they're like, the one clip talked about, if you're going to act like that with him in public, how nice are you to him behind closed doors? I'm like, my goodness, here we're all on the same team. Like, we all have the same goals. We just have different ideas on how we're going to get there.
Well, the moral of the story there is the sad fact that I don't think anything that Joe Biden did in that closing speech, nor anything he's been doing in the last closing days of his administration, deals with the fundamental challenge of what happened over the last 5 years. And that was that President Biden and his allies, and they were many, including a good handful of oligarchs and high-tech CEOs, all people whom the Biden administration was happy to partner with, they all broke trust. That's the word. The word is trust. And I didn't see anything that happened in that speech that recognized that fact. In fact, what I saw was the opposite. I felt like those of us that have lost trust, and which is a tragic loss, were being lectured once again for being foolish, for not just trusting them more.
I would love to know what you both think about his definition of America. He gave a one-word definition of America. Do you guys happen to remember what word he said?
Well, thanks for finding it, because I'm still looking. What was the word?
Possibilities. That was.
Yes, of course he said that.
That was the way he defined America.
Yes.
It got me thinking.
Cue the Mary Poppins music.
It just got me thinking, can you define America in one word? Is that even a wise or a noble thing to try to do, to define America in one word? I'm leaning towards no, but I wanted to hear what you guys thought.
Possibilities is just such an open-ended word. Good, evil, what are the possibilities? I feel like that would be a default easy one, just because it's going to take the receiver, whoever receives the word.
It could mean anything.
It could mean anything you'd want it to mean.
Well, let me read another passage. A nation holding the torch of the most powerful idea ever in the history of the world, that all of us are created equal, that all of us deserve to be treated with dignity, justice, and fairness. That democracy must defend and be defined and be imposed, moved in every way possible. Our rights, our freedoms, our dreams. Sorry, guys, but that's a word salad of the highest philosophical degree.
Yeah, I that part jumped out to me as well. The word imposed obviously jumped to me. Democracy must be imposed. That seems like a dictatorship imposes things. But if you watch it,
or an oligarchy, I guess.
Yeah. Either way, I'm wondering if that was off script. I would like to see the actual text of that and to see if imposed was in it or not, because he was fumbling at that point. So I don't know. If that was in the speech written, that's bizarre.
Yeah, there was no walk back or check from the White House, though, so it must have been there. How do you impose democracy?
What?
I'm sorry. I thought only Christian nationalists were trying to impose their beliefs on everyone else.
I think that the administration tried to impose their beliefs a lot, and their friends at Meta helped them out in doing so during the Biden administration. And now there's concern. We heard it in the speech about not being able to impose those things on the American people by, he referenced it. Social media will no longer fact check. I'm like, well, wait a minute. They didn't fact check before. They just did whatever you told them to do as an administration.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's a difference between Meta getting rid of fact checkers and getting rid of fact checking.
Yes.
They're going to fact check, but it's going to be the community, the people that Joe Biden says should undergird
Should be the watch
America.
guards.
Yeah. So we're going to get to on social media. So that's great. He should be happy about that.
Well, I'm guessing a lot of people are saying, I don't even want to hear any more conversations about this. I'm just glad we're turning the page. But words matter.
Yeah.
And these words are a sign off from one of the most difficult 5-year periods that America has experienced. And I'm including the campaign from the basement and the 4 years of non-disclosed health issues and mental incapacity and then an election that was the most manipulated process that we've ever had in the history of American law or politics. That's going to be a lot of paragraphs in history books, and all of it centers on Joe Biden, and he leaves as he came, cloudy.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.